For those of us in the news business, we're accustomed to talking about fire season, but it's become more and more evident that fire season is all year long.
And after last year's devastating losses in the Altadena and Pacific Palisades fire, here in Southern California, we're on high alert for anything that could make a difference in fire outcomes.
And you probably would not have thought of this, but how about fighting fire with sound? After what we saw from the fires in the Palisades and Altadena, we realized that there were issues with water. So if there was another way to be able to fight fires, maybe sound might work. So you're not going to believe how it may actually make a difference in fighting fires.
I'm Hal Eisner along with Elsa Ramon and Hunter Lowry, and this is What the Hell.
Smart, fresh, and uplifting. We've got the stories that make you want to say,
What the hell? Hello, everybody. I'm Elsa Ramon, and today we have Jeff Bruder, is the CEO of Sonic Fire Tech. It's an American company that has come up with an innovative way to fight fires. We were just talking about how possibly sound might make a difference in fighting fires. Jeff, thanks for joining us here on What the Hell.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So the first thought that comes to my mind when I hear using sound to fight fires, it doesn't really seem that is a viable idea, but it actually is. And you are currently using it right now and figuring out how to use it to get a handle on big fires.
Yeah, absolutely. So we aren't the first ones to do this. I know the is it science fiction thought comes up quite a bit, but DARPA actually showed this was possible back in 2008. The Army has researched it, NASA's researched it, and basically what we've done is build a practical system, and we fixed a lot of the issues that the other efforts had seen, and made something that was energy efficient and safe and scalable.
You're going to have to explain how it works.
Yeah, we could start at the beginning.
Yes, please.
Okay, so for a fire to burn, you need three things. You need heat, fuel, and oxygen. So all we're doing is vibrating the oxygen faster than the fuel can use it, so it breaks the chemical reaction. And it's just vibrating the oxygen, so it's still safe to breathe. That is a question that comes up quite a bit. So you can still be in the room, and there's no issue.
I've been in the middle of fires. Okay, we're first responders when we're news people. Elsa's been out there too. We have our fire gear, we have our goggles, we have all the things to protect us out in the flames. And I've seen water doused on fires. I've actually done a thing with the Orange County Fire Authority where I went out, they set back fires, and I helped set them and put them out because it was a demonstration for the viewers. So I see where water extinguishes flame. And I'm having a little hard time getting my head around the notion that you're doing something with oxygen that would cause fire to go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what water is doing is working on another leg of that flame triad. So I said heat, fuel, and oxygen. Water is just sapping the heat, right? So we're working on the oxygen in a fire that's been burning for a long time, like a wildland fire or something like that, where you've got wood that is very hot. We don't cool as quickly as water does, so we have to run for a longer time till it cools down. So that's less effective than the ways we're using it. We're trying to beat to the fire very early.
Heat, fuel, and oxygen. So oxygen, if I remember correctly, if you starve the fire of the oxygen, that's what puts it out, correct? So how exactly does the process starve the fire of the oxygen with the sound?
Yeah, so there's a time element to the chemical reaction, where if the oxygen is moving faster than the chemical reaction can support. So there's something called flame speed. So we're essentially vibrating faster than flame speed. We're moving the oxygen faster than the chemical reaction can happen. And everything we're doing is in infrasound, so it's very low frequency. So we're below audible, so we can run it safely. And our wavelengths are very long, so 54 feet at 20 hertz. We're moving oxygen molecules very far. So as the fuel is trying to combine, the oxygen molecules are wiggling too fast for them to grab hold, so it breaks the chemical reaction.
It sounds impossible to me, but I've seen the pictures, I've seen the video, and it actually does work. The thing that I didn't realize was that it is sub-audible, but it's sub-audible, but it must be very loud.
So you feel pressure, you don't hear it.
Gotcha.
That's interesting. Okay, so you can feel it as somebody fighting the fire. You said that the actual sonic, or the sound rather, stream is about 54 feet. Is that correct?
It's the wavelength.
Oh, yeah, the
So
wavelength is 54 feet.
Yeah.
So does that allow you to stay a safe distance from the fire, or is that just what it's capable of right now, and maybe over time you'd be able to get farther away
Yeah,
from
so
the fire?
the wavelength is how far things are moving based on the operating frequency. The effective distance scales with the amount of power we put into it.
You can tell we're not
let's go back though.
scientists
Go
here.
back to January 2025 though. Wait a minute, hold on. Go back to January 2025. Go back to the fires. Throw wind into the equation. Wind comes whooshing on through. How does that work with sound?
Yeah. So sound is oscillatory flow. Wind is unidirectional, right? So we've begun testing with cutting through wind. And it's not a 1-to-1. We can also measure our output velocities. And we're capable of hundreds of miles an hour of exit velocity. So when you have a 70-mile-an-hour wind, we have to crank up the exit velocity to punch through it. But it's not a 1-to-1. So if we're operating from a 10-foot eave on the outside of a home, and we have 10-mile-an-hour wind coming from the side, we don't have to exit at 10 miles an hour to get to the ground. We can operate less than that, if that makes sense. So it's a scalable issue. But to your point, it is a much more difficult problem to handle wind and protect the outside of a home. Right now, we are focused on the interior of homes, and we are doing testing to move to the outside.
Well, just to follow up on that, if you don't mind.
Uh-huh.
I spent 4 decades in this area in Southern California. I was in the middle of an awful lot of fires. And so if the Army has tested this, if others have tested this, why in the heck aren't cities and states like California employing this?
Yeah. So what every effort prior to us ran into was they were basically using subwoofers to try to generate the acoustic waves. So subwoofers optimize at 30 to 60 hertz, which is audible, and they're really power hungry. So a subwoofer is typically less than 1% efficient. So you end up throwing a ton of power into something that is then hurting your ears as you start to scale it up. So they basically ran into, okay, this isn't practical. And the end of most of the reports that we've seen from these big groups says, if we could drop the frequency and increase the pressure, we would have something. But how to do that is the tough thing.
But you guys have figured that out.
Yeah. So what we have done, so I'm an aerospace engineer by training, started my career at NASA Glenn, and I was working on power systems for planetary missions. So sounds completely disconnected from this. But we use something called a Stirling engine, which converts heat energy into pressure, and then into usable power. And I worked on a Venus lander mission where we had to simplify the device even more because Venus is so inhospitable. And I came up with a new architecture that converted heat into high intensity acoustic waves and then into usable power and cooling for that craft. So all of that know-how in how to generate and receive acoustic waves very efficiently and in very high intensity is what we're using here. So we had to design the system from the ground up. You couldn't start with subwoofers.
imagine there might be also, not aside from skepticism from local fire departments and municipalities about the viability of using sound to fight fires, or acoustic waves. I would imagine cost might be a barrier as well, even though it sounds like this would be an extremely effective way to fight fires. How do you approach that with cities and fire departments and counties that may want to look at this, but they're concerned about the cost? And how scalable is it? I mean, are we talking about house fires very effective? Are we talking about Palisades fire effective? Would it be effective on a fire that size?
Yeah. So where we are starting is with residential interior sprinkler replacement. So in California, you're mandated to have interior sprinklers when you build your homes. And we're already at price parity with those sprinkler systems. So we just completed a round of testing to show equivalency. We had a fire protection engineer from NFPA write a test plan for us, come out, operate the tests. And this is a very important thing when you're doing something like this. You have to work with fire service to get their buy-in. So we had a third party come and run tests and showed superiority to residential sprinkler systems in a number of ways. So average detection time on a interior sprinkler system is something like 3 minutes, and ours was 3 seconds. We can put out kitchen grease fires, which a residential sprinkler system can't, and about a third of your home fires start in the kitchen. So lots of different metrics where we're a better solution, and that's a much simpler use case to see, I think, because we're not combating winds. We're looking at an 8 to 10 foot ceiling height, and we're using our response time because we don't destroy everything when we go off. A water sprinkler's dumping. If you have one head go off, there's 20 gallons a minute dumping into your house. So they're sized for 2 sprinklers to go off. So you could be pouring 40 gallons a minute from some, relatively small fire.
So water damage too, on top of fire
Right.
damage and smoke damage.
All of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course. I'm just curious. I have a question about the system, but what was it, Da Vinci you've been working on? The Venus program?
So what about
Is that the one you've been working on? You said you were working on a Venus lander.
So I was working on a power system for a Venus lander, and that's where the acoustics know-how came from.
I see. So let's go back to January 25 again. Do you think that had we had audio as a way to suppress flame, that we might have had a different outcome?
I think that you can protect individual homes. So the way we envision this is routing around the exterior of the home, combined with the gutter system, and making essentially an acoustic barrier. Because the way that homes were starting on fire was embers get shed off the wildfire, and you end up with these huge ember storms, right? Those embers are pelting against the side of the house, and then they land in they start a small fire. So they land in your shrubbery around the home. They get up into attic vents. They get under a deck.
We've seen the palm trees too, just light up as soon as the embers hit them too. Yeah,
exactly.
Explosive.
So if you can prevent those small fires, then you can prevent the structure from burning. It's just a matter of being able to punch through the wind, as Hal said.
So you see this as a secondary system?
No, I see it as a primary, but only on individual structures at this point versus going after the large scale fires themselves.
Okay.
So is this something that is being used right now? I saw a video where they were installing it on a house. Is it in practice in houses and businesses currently?
So we did an exterior installation as a demonstration, and we've done interior demonstrations. We're just about to put this on inside the first home in Altadena.
So what does that look
So
like?
what's the cost?
If I'm a homeowner, cost and
Yeah.
if I'm a homeowner, you walk in, you obviously know what the sprinklers look like, right? If you're in a hotel or whatever.
Right.
But But what does that look like inside of homes? Because people are going to be concerned about the aesthetics. Maybe,
Yeah, so
maybe
we're-
not,
we're-
but there will be some.
Yeah, so we're matching the costs of interior sprinklers, so it varies on the size of the home and the complexity. But there's an additional issue that folks in that homes burned down after the fires last year are dealing with. That most of those homes were built before the 2012 sprinkler mandate, so their water service is insufficient to support the sprinklers. So not only do they have to buy the sprinklers, they have to upgrade their water service, buy a new water meter, and they're looking at an additional $25,000 to do that.
And to
Okay,
your knowledge,
bottom line, Jeff.
Yeah.
Tell us like how much it would cost to outfit a standard residential home.
and does insurance
Yeah, so-
possibly cover any of this? I mean, you would think that maybe
Yes.
this would be something preventative and would save insurance companies money.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are having conversations with insurance. So we're trying to match cost before any insurance is taken into account, because I think you guys are well aware of the insurance situation out there. Can't always count on it. So we're trying to make the cost work prior to that. But a typical sprinkler system is something between 15 and 25,000, depending on the size of the home. So we fall right in line with that.
Are we looking at mostly businesses or homes or?
So residential to start. We specifically tested to the residential standard, but then we are working towards the commercial standards as well.
It's fascinating to me that we haven't seen governments, larger entities getting engaged in this on a practical level, and it makes me wonder: have you had pushback from cities and counties and states?
So I wouldn't say pushback, but we have been engaged in conversations with fire service for the past 5 years. They are not folks that take things lightly. And it takes a very long time to get them to believe what you're doing, especially if you're saying, "Hey, the way you've been doing it for 100 years could be better."
Sure.
Right? So it's been a long conversation, but we have a lot of support now.
I would imagine the scalability, which we talked about a little earlier, is an issue, right? I mean, they want to be able to see if it can scale and what your timeline might be for that.
Yeah. So we've been working through that as well. And the parts are actually fairly simple. And we've, surprisingly, been able to get manufacturing lined up here in Cleveland, and be more cost effective than if we tried to manufacture overseas. So this is actually going to be something made here in the States.
Another interesting question. You raised the point that you're in Cleveland, and Ohio is not exactly the place we think of as being the epicenter of big fire problems. How'd you end up there?
Yeah, so I moved here originally. I'm born and raised in Florida, actually. Moved up here when I got the job at NASA Glenn. So that's where
that's where you headquartered.
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to building things, Cleveland's great. Every other building's a machine shop around here. And we've got a ton of engineering expertise with NASA and a few other big groups here.
Hey guys, I got one quick question before we wrap it up, because I know, Jeff, you got to go soon, but are there other applications you are looking at for this technology aside from fighting fires? Are there other things that this could turn into that would help in other ways, or is fighting fires just the main focus right now?
Yeah, so our focus has been more so on deploying this in the right ways for fire, but then also looking at the larger scale opportunities. So we also have a demonstration contract with PG&E to work on larger scale systems, and then we've got some other conversations going on to pilot this in larger ways. I think one of the more interesting things is how it interacts with lithium ion, because that's an ever present problem.
Right.
So you don't stop lithium ion fires, but we can contain them, and we've started some small scale testing there.
Yeah, but just to hold you on for a couple more minutes, I'd like you to take your brain into the future and just tell us what you envision. I mean, you're a scientist. You see things. You've worked on this for a while. Somehow, in your dreams of dreams, you see something in your mind about this kind of technology. What do you see?
A couple places I'd like to see this go. If we're scaling it, to its maximum, I could see it as producing acoustic walls to hold back these megafires at a point. And one that might not occur to folks is we're starting to work on lunar bases and Mars colonies and the like, and we don't have a good way to put fires out up there. So I'd like to see it deployed there as well.
Interesting. I have one other question, and this is from personal experience. You said that this is subaudible, but you can feel it. I have an annoying neighbor across the street who plays his subwoofers in his truck, and it's not so much that you can hear it. It's like you literally feel it in your body. The walls shake. And is this safe? Is this comfortable? Are my pets going to lose their mind?
Yeah. So we are below even those. Those are still designed to be. They do run them a little bit below. Hearing threshold is really 25-ish hertz, so they'll run down to 30, maybe 25 in some of those applications. But we have some data that we refer to at much higher pressure levels than we're looking at. There's been studies of subjecting people to like 120 decibels of infrasound for 8 hours a night while they slept for a month to see if there was any lingering effect.
Here for this.
That's don't know who or why, but no lingering effect.
Sounds like sound abuse.
I know. Oh my God! Wait.
All right.
Hunter wants to know if Sonic Fire Tech can blanket and drown out the music or the sound from the subwoofers from her neighbor.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, we'll start looking at that.
Well, look, I think it's exciting. Anytime we break the barrier of new technology, it's got us thinking about all kinds of possibilities. Just curious, do you have a website that people can get more information on?
We do. Yep. sonicfiretech.com.
All right. sonicfiretech.com. And Jeff Bruder, thanks so much for joining us here on What the Hal? And that's What the Hal 2.0. I'm Hal Eisner, along with Elsa Ramon and Hunter Lowry. This podcast is produced by Hunter. Jamie Knapp is our technical director, editor, and he handles all of the post-production. Our original theme music is composed by Stuart Pearson. Earlier versions of the podcast were produced at the studios of Fox 11 in Los Angeles and are available through the link in our show notes. This version of the podcast is available on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. And What the Hal 2.0 is produced in Los Angeles, California.